Hello, my name is Ellen Pfeiffer. Welcome to the fifth topic of this course in Advanced Freshwater Health. Over the course of its six segments, we will consider different elements of the system needed to put any resource management plan into action. We will start with an overview of the basic principles of freshwater governance. First of all, what is governance? It is a term that modern water practitioners encounter everywhere, at least in the past few decades. It seems that before the 1970s, publications and reports spoke of government, not of governance. In older definitions, governance is what a government does. So what has changed in the past few decades? What does this shift mean? The key to understanding governance is to compare the way we want resource management and regulation to work with the real world. In the former, a practitioner tasked with the health of a freshwater system will make a plan to achieve that goal, fitting it with a defined authority of their department. They will intend to implement that plan, assuming that everybody else accepts their authority, and in the end, the freshwater system is in a good state. But there is a problem with making a plan based on the authority of the department or agency in charge of managing a freshwater system. Specifically, most of the pressures that affect and threaten freshwater health are not created intentional. There are no actors sitting in a room deciding to pollute or degrade an ecosystem. Maybe they are tasked to enhance food security or to ensure energy supply of a population, or they are developing cities and towns or aim to improve economic growth and prosperity. Freshwater ecosystems are often the collateral damage of such decisions and maybe not considered far enough or in need of repair. But that does not mean there were no legitimate reasons to make the decisions in the first place. The reality of managing natural resources is that there is never just one authority making one plan for one problem. But while authorities can focus on one issue at a time, the population of an area that is managed has to engage all authorities, interest groups, and initiatives present. This slide, for example, shows the system of authorities and actors that a community in Zambia would have to navigate in their resource management. Apart from the sheer number of actors involved, and this is still just a selection, note the small icon groups of people. Villages are asked to create committees to represent their interests, but by each authority separately. While looking efficient from the inside of a single authority, the committee system transplants the artificial silo thinking of specialized government departments into the setting of a rural community of subsistence farmers, where issues of wildlife, forests, agriculture, and water cannot even be separated. Accordingly, thinking about freshwater governance means to stop thinking about the freshwater system itself and instead to ask how you and your plan fits into a world in which people have other problems, other interests, and other authorities. And with this, a little challenge. Based on what you have heard so far, what do you think is the current definition of the term governance? Has nothing changed? Is it still mostly what the government does? Does it refer to, in a broader sense, to how the government makes decisions? Or has it broadened to include decision-making processes that involves actors beyond the government? Please take your time to find the right answer and click play when you're ready to continue. If you picked answer 3, well done. There are many modern definitions for governance, but while different in wording, they all agree that governance is a summary term describing systems and processes involved in making decisions about a resource with societal goals in mind. The government does play a part in governance, but the modern understanding acknowledges that many different actors, processes, and elements affect the outcome when a resource is governed. The sum of all these elements is the governance system. With the modern definition in mind, why is governance important to you? It is essential because a freshwater management plan does not exist in a vacuum. To put your plan from paper into reality, it needs to be backed with authority and influence the decisions of many individuals in the society, public and private sector alike. You cannot control their decisions, but you can analyze the reality of your context, make a plan that fits, and engage mechanisms that will help with the implementation. In general, working in the freshwater governance system in your context starts with 2 steps. First, the assessment, what is part of the system. As the example from the Zambian village showed, the set of actors, interests, and processes that shape a resource governance system can be surprising, and many of them won't have water in the name. Then, in a second step, the task is to analyze which of the existing elements will help with your plan, and in contrast, what is still missing or in need of improvement to reach objectives. Improvements of a governance system might be small, such as updating the methods of freshwater monitoring, and can reach to big undertakings such as the creation of entirely new policies and regulations. For the first step, many tools are available to assess governance systems. Ultimately, they are all based on the same underlying logic, and understanding this underlying logic will help you to find the connecting red lines in a diversity of terms and approaches found in the literature. First, not every issue in society or nature creates its own governance system. Problems that can be managed have very specific characteristics. Namely, it needs to involve a scarce resource. It needs to involve humans that want to use the resource in different ways that would lead to different outcomes. Specific actors that have been given a mandate to making certain decisions. This might be you as water managers. And finally, the fact that making such choices involves normative judgments. A normative judgment means that choices are deemed to be good versus bad, or better versus worse, but not technically right or wrong. The elements of any government system reflect the underlying characteristics of the issue to govern as depicted in the previous slide. Here, the mirror image is exemplified by a figure developed by ING Delft, which shows the scarce resource as the central axis around which processes and decision-making revolves. The different interests in using the resource are depicted at the top with the different boxes, the black boxes representing sectors from which interests may stem. Actors with authority to make decisions are shown on the left in the set of institutions involved, with a reminder that institutions typically carry their mandate for a specific level only. The values that guide normative decisions are embedded in the policies as priorities, here depicted on the right, but also in the way that the process is conducted. For example, asking for a transparent process means that decision makers have to explain the reasoning behind their decisions because value is assigned to the opportunities for other actors to agree or object. Based on these explanations so far, another little challenge questions. Let's look for the elements of your government system in the context of the freshwater system you are working in or that you are interested in working with. Think of that freshwater system, then scan the list on the screen. Which of these actors and elements would you count as part of the governance system? Take your time to consider the answers and click play when you're ready to continue. Even though all governance systems follow the same underlying logic, they also have many different elements and assessment can become complicated very fast. Therefore, it is useful to consider using one of the many published existing tools instead of customizing your own assessment. One example for an existing tool is the User's Guide for Assessing Water Governance, issued by the Stockholm International Water Institute, CAPNet, and the Water Integrity Network. It assesses the governance system in 3 dimensions, namely actors and institutions, principles, and performance. Otherwise, the User's Guide offers a variety of options to customize an assessment. That means all assessments will start with inventorizing actors, institutions, and governance principles, but there are still many ways to assess the performance and effectiveness of the system itself. For example, an assessment that uses water governance functions as an entry point would assess if different authorities and service providers do a good job with a specific task they have been assigned to do. However, if the overall system is badly designed, even perfect performance by all actors might not produce the freshwater result you want. Therefore, an alternative possibility is to assess the results of water governance, and if anything is unsatisfactory, to go in search of reasons along the functional divide. After identifying the elements of the governance system around you, the next step is to ask, how good is the system? For such a question, the best starting point is a good benchmark. For the ecologists in the room, a benchmark is the social version of a reference date. For water governance, the de facto global benchmark are the OECD water governance principles, developed collaboratively and adopted by hundreds of water organizations, countries, and authorities. They provide recommendations for 11 areas, including, for example, the assignment of clear responsibilities, harmonizing policies, fostering innovation, or involving stakeholders. These areas are checked for their effectiveness, meaning how well objectives are achieved, for efficiency, meaning how many resources are needed to achieve objectives, as well as for trust and engagement, assessing how well the system is embedded and accepted in the society at large. In summary, the freshwater governance system around you assigns the responsibility for action and determines the ability to act. Aiming for a system fully in line with the OECD water governance principle is the current gold standard, but it is a system designed for all water-related sectors and decisions in the entire country. So it goes far beyond governance aspects of a specific freshwater health initiative. So in the next 5 segments of this lecture, we will take a closer look at 4 core aspects of water governance to consider in the course of a specific initiative targeting a specific freshwater system. Specifically, this will include how to position yourself in the context, how to assess the capacities available, how and who to engage to be successful, and how to link your ecological objectives to decision-making in human systems.